straight in front of us is Slate Hill. Across there is Fell End. And then down in the bottom is Boo's Wood Level, which is where I'm going to take you in a few minutes. So across there is Fell End Mine. You see there the light coloured refuse tip. Just above there is Fell End Level. The vein comes down the hill from the high point. There's a cairn at the top. The vein runs down across the top of the tip from Fell End. The vein runs across Slate Hill in the direction of Boo's. There is Boo's. Several veins run across the gill, and they all more or less follow the direction of Remington Edge and Fell End there. Then the mine I'm going to take you down to is down here. The level runs up on the Boo's village, slightly to the right of the village there. It runs about half a mile. Cuts Boo's vein underneath the village, and I'll take you down to Boo's Wood Level now. So here we are at Boo's Wood Level. I'll just pan around, give you a bit of an idea of where we're at. Just next to the level here on the left is the remains of the mine shop. This will be used for storing tools, possibly stabling for an odd horse, just to draw the wagons in and out of the level. Probably in winter time, in summer time, the horse would be in its pasture. And just over there is, you can't see through the trees, but Arkengarthdale is about 50 yards across there. And around the waste tips, you're out in that direction, and there was a tramway that ran up the waste tip, and the tip is made up across there. It's actually raised over a tunnel, an arched tunnel that's been created to allow access underneath the waste tips. And the tramway across there and over to the dressing floors where we'll go later. I'll come right back around again. Now to the level. I'll give you an idea of what size it is. I'll walk into shot in a minute. The level was started in about 1860. Between the crown of the level and the top of the rail should be 6 foot. So it's obviously, because this is doubled in the bottom of the level there. A little bit farther in, the rails are actually still in. So I'll say it was started in 1860 or thereabouts. By 1870 it was 130 yards short of Boo's Vein. And at some point it's actually driven in flags underneath the 5-yard limestone. And the flags, just at this particular point, were very flat, and they were used for roofing slate and flags for houses, footpaths, engine beds, and apparently some of the flags were used for the edging on Darlington station platforms. the flat quarry was actually opened up within the mine, about 200 yards in, 300 yards perhaps. Say about, well, I think in the 1870s it was opened up. It actually worked till about 1930. And these beds of flags underneath the 5-yard limestone, where they've been worked at throughout the dales, they've been very good hard slates. Now the level wasn't particularly successful as a lead mine. So I've just moved down from the level a little bit. It's a bit hard to see, but this was an open cast working for slate and flags. The flags were probably not very good at this point. Where they outcrop are often bent and fractured by tree roots. So the main quarrying was underground. I'll span round, and here we are at there's the tunnel leading through to the dressing floors. The tramway ran over the top of that. And then just to the right of there's a tunnel there. Went through to take the water away from the level. The water actually goes in the opposite direction now, but that was the main drain when the mine was working. So right, here we are on the other side of the tunnel. The tunnel's up there, and all along this bank on the right hand side are the waste tips. The waste tips run all the way along. And then as we come round, we come to the dressing floors. The dressing floors are set out in a fairly logical pattern. At the top, just behind the big tree there, at the top of the bow steams where the lead ore from the mine was tipped, and then around there we've got the remains of the wall around the back of where the water wheel and crushers were. Just around here, little building. Right on. I'll go up to the bow steams now. Right, so here we are at the bow steams. The tramway from the mine ran up along the top of that banking, along and on top of the bow steams, so that the wagons could tip the ore into these hoppers. They were open at the front, and each partnership would have probably one section itself. This would be one partnership of men from anywhere from 3 to 6 men possibly, and another partnership, and another partnership, and so on. What they would do, the partnership themselves would pick through the ore that they'd mined underground and pick out as much waste as possible. As much waste that didn't contain any lead ore, and that was all tipped on the front. Just below it here. Tipped down this bank. Well, the mine wasn't particularly successful in its life between when the vein was cut. Say the vein was cut at about 18 maybe about 1872 or 73 perhaps. Between then and 1888, when the mine closed, they mined 219 bings of ore, a bing being 800 weights. That relates to 808 tonnes at say 70% concentration. That gives us 565 tonnes of smelted lead. So if the mine hadn't cut that good bed of sandstone used for slate and flags, the mine probably wouldn't have made a profit at all. Pan around there, you can see the position where the pressing floors are, right next to Arkengarthdale. So here we are, just to the right of the bow steams, a little bit below them, and this retaining wall housed the crushers. There in the centre is a wheel pit, water wheel pit. The retaining wall runs round to there. Now on either side of the water wheel there's a set of crushers. The central axle from the water wheel drove a set of cogs, and they in turn turned crushing rolls, which were metal cylinders, solid metal cylinders, probably about so wide, both parallel to each other, turning in opposite directions, so that the lead ore, which was all mixed with limestone and calcite and whatever, would run down through between the crushing rolls. Crushing rolls would be set to about half an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch gap, because they really wanted the lead ore to be about the size of 3/8 to half an inch. The crushing rolls were weighted so that they were kept together. They were weighted with heavy stones and hung on these metal bars. So that kept the weight of the crushing rolls together. But if it was a very hard lump of rock or a lump of metal which might damage the crushing rolls, the weights would lift, allowing the crushing rolls to spread apart without damaging the rolls. Now on that side, on the left hand side, there's probably coarse crushing rolls. The rolls may have been fluted to add extra pressure to the rock. And on the right hand side there would be fine crushing rolls, perfectly smooth, just to crush smaller material. Then once that was crushed, that would be washed and sieved, and that would be taken down to the next level down, just in front of us here. And in the front here there would be hotching tubs. The hotching tub was a fairly wide wooden box, waterproof box, full of water, and over the top of that hung a sieve, a square sieve, slightly smaller than the box, the little water trough, raised edges, and they put all the material from the crushing rolls on the top of the sieve, spread it out. The sieve was hung on a hinge above the box with a long lever coming out which the miners could operate themselves just by hand, and lift it up and down so they could force the sieve with all the ore and waste into the water, thrust it up and down several times. That allowed the heavy lead ore settle to the bottom of the sieve, and the lighter waste, limestone, calcite, varieties, other minerals would float to the top. On the top you'd have the lighter species. Those would be scraped off. Then the process would be repeated again. More light material would rise to the top to take that off. Between the levels of material on the sieve, you would have very pure lead ore at the bottom. Part way up, you'd have a mixture of lead ore and limestone, calcite, whatever the minerals were. Then obviously the lighter material on top. But the material in the middle, where it's mixed 50-50, 50% lead ore, 50% waste rock, that was taken off, and that would probably go back into the crushing rolls on the fine side, be crushed again. The pure lead ore that was on the bottom of the sieve would go to the Binkstead ready for smelting. The materials being crushed, which was mixed material, we again brought to the pots and tubs, spread on the sieve again, then the miner would dunk it in the water, and the whole process started again. Then pure lead ore dropped to the bottom, lighter material rose to the top, and so on. So here we are at the lowest level, or nearly the lowest level. There actually be settling pits behind us as well. But you see just in front here, the waste from the hotching tubs. And there's this fine waste here from what's probably a running puddle, or a trunk puddle, which was just water in a running through a trough, slightly inclined. The waste material containing lead ore was put in at the top of the trough. Water was constantly running down and through the trough, and it would wash the lighter material further along the trough, leaving pure lead ore, or as near pure lead ore as it can get at the head of the trough. Then beyond that there'd be other settling pits. Nothing to see here now, but in the ground, in this area, the other settling pits to try and settle all the waste out before it entered the beck. In theory, or in practice, there's quite a lot of waste actually went down the becks themselves. Caused quite a lot of pollution. At one time it was said that the swale was so coloured with waste from the mines that it was only ever clear on a Sunday. So I hope you just enjoyed my little bit of a tour of Booswood level and Booswood dressing floors.